All of these songs have one thing in common. Can you guess what it is? I'll give you 3 seconds. Yup, you're right. These songs only have one verse. Then they just repeat it a second time so that they don't have to write a whole nother verse. I feel so close to you right now. I feel so close to you right now. In other words, the singers of these songs are lazy. Or are they? This right here is the first and only verse in The Killer's Mr. Brightside. Coming out of my cage and I've been doing just fine. Gotta be down because I want it all. It started out with a kiss, how did it end up like this? It was only a kiss, it was only a kiss. Now I'm falling asleep and she's calling a cab while he's having a smoke and she's taking a drag. Now they're going to bed and my stomach is sick and it's all in my head, but she's touching his chest now. He takes off her dress now, letting me go. Later in the song, the singer of The Killers, Brandon Flowers, sings the exact same lyrics again, instead of doing the customary thing of writing new lyrics for a second verse. Why would he do this though? Why not just write another verse? I mean, that's what everyone else does, right? Actually, no. There are tons of songs out there that only have a single repeated verse. There's actually a pretty fascinating reason why Brandon Flowers repeats the first verse in Mr. Brightside. Make sure to watch the whole video to find out. First, I want you to comment and tell me a song that repeats the first verse twice. Do it right now. Thanks! Let's get something out of the way. Repeating stuff in music is not uncommon. In fact, I'd argue that it's literally the most common thing in music. I mean, literally the very concept of rhythm is all about repetition. And as Ben Shapiro has taught us, rhythm is 1/3 of what music is.
There are 3 elements to music. There is harmony, there is melody, and there is rhythm.
Like I mentioned earlier, Mr. Brightside is not the only song that takes the entire first verse and repeats it again. There are actually 2 entire genres where this is more or less standard practice: jazz and EDM. Let's take a look at a jazz song that completely repeats the first verse. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off of you. You'd be like heaven to touch. I wanna hold you so much. At long last, love has arrived. And thank God I'm alive. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off you. You might think you don't know this song. I'm guessing you definitely know this part though. I love you, baby. And if it's quite alright, I need you, baby. To warm the lonely night, I love you, baby. Trust in me when I say. The song is called Can't Take My Eyes Off You by Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. After the chorus, Valli sings the entire first verse again with the exact same lyrics. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off of you. You'd be like heaven to touch. I wanna hold you so much. At long last, love has arrived. And thank God I'm alive. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off you. Like I mentioned before, singing the first verse 2 or more times is pretty common practice in jazz music. But why? I should mention something quickly. Frankie Valli's Can't Take My Eyes Off You isn't technically jazz. It's a rock song that's strongly influenced by jazz. Most of his music is, in fact. It also comes from a time when jazz influenced popular music in a heavier way. Jazz music historically has had what they call the head, or the main melody of the song, which usually repeats 2 or more times. There's a lot of variation, but the form of a small band jazz song usually goes head, and then solos, and then head again. This format can be heard a lot in some of the most iconic jazz albums of all time, like Giant Steps, Time Out, and Kind of Blue. The song Giant Steps, possibly the jazziest jazz song of all time, uses this exact format. Although this traditional form started with instrumental jazz, it kind of carried over into vocal jazz as well. The head of a jazz song is similar to what we would call the verse in a rock or pop song. Jazz musicians will usually play the head at the beginning of the song, and then insert one or more solos in the middle of the song before playing the head again at the end of the song. Two examples of vocal jazz that come to mind are Billie Holiday's Summertime and Frank Sinatra's Fly Me to the Moon. Both songs repeat the verse, or the head as we call it, twice, once at the beginning and once at the end. Each time, the lyrics and the melody stay the exact same. Interestingly though, only the latter half of the verse is sung the second time. The difference between jazz and pop is that pop music usually has a more distinctive chorus, which is the most recognizable and singable part of a song. The chorus tends to be repeated multiple times, each time with the same lyrics. The idea of a song having a chorus became more popular with the advent of rock and roll music. This is where Frankie Valli's Can't Take My Eyes Off You comes in. The song has a rock and roll style chorus, while also borrowing from the jazz tradition of repeating the head, or the verse. Though just because the lyrics and the melody are the same, doesn't mean that the two verses sound completely identical. In fact, they're in completely different keys. The first verse is sung in E major, whereas the second modulates up to G major. Additionally, the second verse has a violin counter melody, which gives it a sweeter and airier feel to it. On the absolute opposite side from jazz, there's a completely different and more contemporary musical tradition where also verses tend to be repeated. And that tradition is EDM. For anyone who doesn't know, EDM stands for electronic dance music. I want to show you one specific EDM song that repeats the first verse multiple times. It's called Feel So Close by Calvin Harris. I feel so close to you right now, it's a force field. I wear my heart up on my sleeve like a big deal. Your love pours down on me, surround me like a waterfall. And there's no stopping us right now. I feel so close to you right now. Feel So Close follows the standard pop verse-chorus format. The chorus, however, is completely instrumental. In fact, instrumental choruses are actually pretty common in EDM. This is what the chorus of Feel So Close sounds like. EDM is more or less music that's designed specifically for big concerts or clubs. The purpose of EDM is to get people moving. Most musicians agree that a great way to get people moving is lots of repetition. This could mean repetition in the drums, repetition in the melody, or repeating an entire verse. After the chorus, Calvin Harris sings the first verse again. Listen to how different it sounds from the first time we heard it though. I feel so close to you right now, it's a force field. I wear my heart up on my sleeve like a big deal. Your love pours down on me, surround me like a waterfall. And there's no stopping us right now. I feel so close to you right now. On top of the main melody, Harris adds two distinctive vocal harmony parts. This adds such a different flavor, it almost sounds like a completely new melody. Importantly though, the lyrics stay the exact same. Now, if you know anything about him, Calvin Harris is kind of the king of repeating verses. His two biggest hit songs, Summer and This Is What We Came For, also both repeat the first verse, lyrics and melody. I think a big reason EDM artists often repeat the first verse is because of the fact that the chorus is often instrumental. Every song on the radio needs a part that you can sing along to. If there's nothing to sing in the chorus, then you may as well repeat the first verse twice so that people can memorize it more easily. There's a common thread we've seen with all the songs we've talked about so far, both jazz and EDM. Even though they repeat the same lyrics and melody, the second verse always adds something unique and distinguishable. Whether it be omitting half the verse, changing the key, or adding harmony parts, the second verse always has something special about it that makes it different from the first. This brings us back to Mr. Brightside. Mr. Brightside isn't jazz, nor is it EDM. Mr. Brightside comes from the rock and roll tradition where repeating the first verse is very rare. There are other rock songs that repeat the first verse, like Wonderwall or Hey Jude, but it nonetheless is quite uncommon. The more interesting thing, though, is that the second verse of Mr. Brightside isn't really that different from the first. There's nothing super unique or distinguishable about it. There are some minor differences. The first verse begins with a filtered vocal, and the bass comes in a bit late. But besides for the first 8 bars, the 2 verses are more or less identical. They share the same bridge as well. So why did the Killers do this? I mean, it doesn't seem like there's a good reason to, right? And how long would it really have taken to write some lyrics for a second verse? Well, here are the singer Brandon Flowers' own words. There's not a second verse. The second is the same as the first. I just didn't have any other lines and it ended up sticking. Mr. Brightside tells a true story of Flowers discovering his girlfriend had been cheating on him. The lyrics are raw and genuine. He didn't write a second verse because he said what he wanted to say and he didn't feel the need to add anything else. Was this a good decision though? In my opinion, the answer is pretty clearly yes. It was the exact right decision. The lyrics to Mr. Brightside just connect with people in such an emotionally powerful way, and that, I think, is the bottom line. If you're going to repeat lyrics in a song, those lyrics better be good. In Mr. Brightside, the lyrics are beyond good. Brandon Flowers also had this to say about Mr. Brightside. We've never not played that song live because it stood the test of time, and I'm proud of it. I never get bored of singing it. I know I said this earlier, but if you know any songs in any genre that repeat the first verse, tell me in a comment. Thanks for watching, bye bye!